All right, gentlemen, today we're doing a 2-round mock draft. I've already selected Fernando Mendoza with the number 1 overall pick to the Raiders. I feel like that's an obvious lock. Actually ran into him last week at the Madden Bowl in San Francisco, a couple days before the Super Bowl. He was walking one way, I was walking the other way, absolutely hammered. I was like, holy shit, Mendoza, just started yelling at him, probably being super obnoxious, but he said what's up back. We tried to chase after him to get a picture. He went into the VIP after party, which we managed to sneak into, but I guess there was like another VIP section within the VIP after party because we couldn't find him. Didn't get the picture. We did get a picture with Kurt Warner, which is pretty cool. And then we tried to get one with Tom Brady, but he left before, which I was super bummed about. But random tangent right there. We're not going to do trades here either. There are some players, including on the Raiders, that I think potentially could be traded for draft capital. Max Crosby comes to mind. I would not be surprised to see him leave Las Vegas, although I'm sure the new regime there really wants to keep him there. Trent McDuffie is another big name that could definitely be on the move for a first-round pick. You know, he's been a huge reason for a lot of their defensive success ever since he's came into the league. But the Chiefs, we know, maybe it's not a huge sample size, a little bit reluctant to pay big contracts, especially to players in their secondary. So I've heard rumors about that potentially happening. There's other players as well. Breece Hall maybe on the Jets at pick number 2. I've seen a lot of people mock Arvell Reese to the Jets. And personally, I'm just not buying this. You know, they say, well, he could be a full-time edge rusher. He could be like Micah Parsons. I don't think they're the same at all. I get they're both kind of hybrid linebacker slash edge rushers in college, but Micah Parsons has much better bend. He's a lot quicker. Reese, I think, is a little bit more powerful. He's a better run defender. He's more of a disruptor. And I don't really see him as a full-time edge rusher. Maybe that's a possibility, but I think that's a huge gamble, especially with the number 2 overall pick. Honestly, if Breece Hall were to be traded, Jeremiah Love, I think, could be in play at number 2. I know people are going to think that's early, which you're probably not going to like my next suggestion here. I think I'm going with, I couldn't find him for a second, Caleb Downs, pick number 2 to the Jets. Again, I just don't personally see it with Reese. I'm not saying he's not a good football player or that he doesn't have a high ceiling. I just think he's an off-ball linebacker who struggles in zone coverage. He definitely needs more reps there. And I'm going with Caleb Downs, who I think is the most surefire player in this draft. And people are going to be like, well, safety doesn't have high positional draft value. And it's like, that's an outdated take in my opinion. If you look at every best defense in the league, they have a slot corner or a safety. Email Worry, Seahawks, one of the best defenses in the league. A guy who can really do a lot of different things, contribute in the run game, cover guys as well. Even defenses like the Patriots that were incredible, you know, in the postseason, they have a Marcus Jones. He might not be a great run defender, maybe not like a safety, but he can cover really well in the slot. Super underrated tool for defenses. I think that's really the evolution of the game at the moment. You need a Swiss Army knife in your secondary. Caleb Downs embodies everything about that, right? 6 foot 205. Maybe not as big as somebody like Email Worry or even like another safety here from Toledo, McNeil Warren, who is another player, in my opinion, very similar to Email Worry. Maybe not as physically gifted, but definitely has all the traits that you'd want for a guy to be a box safety, to be a slot corner, to maybe play up high as well, just offering that versatility for defenses. Caleb Downs, in my opinion, is the obvious selection for the Jets at 2. I know they need a receiver, but Garrett Wilson is elite. Mitchell, I think, is actually pretty solid as well. Just unreliable hands, but he was frying Gonzo. I'm a Patriots fan. I watched those games this year. He was frying Gonzo and just dropped some wide open passes. So there's a lot of talent there. If he can somehow remedy those drops, you know, I think that's a serviceable number 2 right there. Mason Taylor, tight end out of LSU, had a pretty solid year for them as well. We'll see. They definitely need help on defense. And with a defensive back as a head coach, Caleb Downs would be not a very surprising pick to me at all. I know it might be for a lot of people. At pick number 3, again, we're just tearing down all these draft tropes right now. We're going with Jeremiah Love. Did I use that word correctly? I try to sound smart. I don't know if I did or not. But Jeremiah Love, I know right tackle is probably a popular pick for a lot of people here. Spencer Fano, reliable. I like Fano. He's kind of dropping here in average draft position for a lot of people. Maybe it's draft fatigue. he's solid. I think he'll be a solid contributor right off the rip and potentially for the long term as well. I know a lot of people love Maui Noah, had a really good postseason for Miami. Well, maybe not according to PFF so much, but I think Maui Noah profiles better as a guard, and I think we can say that about a lot of tackles, right? I guess guard is maybe considered an easier position to play, but I just feel like he's not as athletic as I would like some of, my tackles to be. Will Campbell, obviously super athletic, shorter arms, but you think of guys like Penei Sewell, you think of guys like Tristan Wirfs, Joe Alt, guys who are actually tremendous athletes, but also great pass blockers, strong technique, can push people in the run game as well. Maui Noah can do all of those things, in my opinion, except deal with a lot of speed. He's not nearly as athletic, moving laterally as some of those other guys I just mentioned. And I mentioned Will Campbell because, again, I am a Patriots fan. He's got the athleticism. I just don't think he really has the technique. And I think that's inverse with Maui Noah here. So I don't really like Maui Noah at 3 to the Cardinals. I would take him later and probably try to move him to guard unless I just had a desperate need at right tackle. But I think at the very minimum, Maui Noah offers a little bit of versatility. At pick number 4 for the Tennessee Titans, I'm going Ruben Bane Jr. I know people are not going to love this guy because of his rumored really short arms and maybe a slight lack of bend as well, just because he's a little bit stockier. I believe he's 6'3", probably 280, 285. Like, he's a big guy, obviously incredibly powerful, super high motor, just a good football player. I don't care that much about the measurables. When I watch this guy play, he's an absolute disruptor, whether it's in the run, whether it's in the pass game. Ruben Bane is a can't-miss prospect, in my opinion, and you pair him up opposite of Oladejo out of UCLA, who you drafted, I believe, in the second round last year, and that's a really good defensive line. 2 really good defensive tackles as well, with Sweat and then Jeffrey Simmons as well. That would be one of the best defensive lines in the league, in my opinion. And I get you're not directly helping Cam Ward in that sense, but you're getting stops on defense, you're getting him the ball as much as possible. It's kind of helping in that way, right? So pick number 5, we have the Giants, who I could definitely see taking a receiver here. I do like Wan'Dale Robinson in the slot. Slayton, obviously, I don't think is really the long-term solution for wide receiver 2. And then Neighbors, interested to see what happens with his injury. Will he actually be back at the beginning of the season, or will he come back later in the season? Obviously, I don't have that information. Only the team would. Maybe if they felt like he wasn't coming back until at least the midway point of the season, they might be more inclined to draft a receiver in this spot. I think Mansoor Delane is a pretty good shout here as well, corner out of LSU. I'm actually going to go with a surprise pick here, Sonny Styles, linebacker out of Ohio State. Many people consider this guy to be the best player in the draft. That's how good, or that's how highly people think of Sonny Styles, and I think he's really good. Again, I think these Ohio State players are a little too hyped up. They're all really good football players. I don't mean to disrespect any of these guys. I think I would give credit to their fan base. They do a great job of propping their players up. And obviously, there's some really good Ohio State players in the league. So again, I'm not trying to take away from anybody who went to Ohio State or who currently does. But Sonny Styles, I think, is really good. I didn't love his game against Miami. I think it was one of his lowest graded games of the season. Miami was just more physical than Ohio State. A big reason why they were able to win that game. And Sonny Styles definitely missed a few tackles that he doesn't typically miss or didn't typically miss throughout the season. So maybe if there's one big concern with Sonny Styles, it's his inability to finish or his lack of physicality, especially at the next level, right? We saw that with a little bit with Miami. That could be a potential red flag, but outside of that, I mean, this guy is built like an absolute alien, 6'5", 243, fast, pretty strong. Again, lacks that finishing touch perhaps, but can always get stronger, super young, great instincts. And I think that's, again, maybe a little surprise pick for the Giants, but I think they need help at linebacker. I think they need help in the secondary. If Caleb Downs was available here, I would probably take Caleb Downs, but Sonny Styles makes a lot of sense, especially with Harbaugh being the new head coach, right? Want to establish physicality, especially on defense. At pick number 6, we have the Cleveland Browns. I'm going to go Monroe Freeling here out of Georgia. This guy has been skyrocketing up draft boards, and I think it's only going to continue. maybe a little bit raw still, especially in the run game, getting to the second level, but 6'7", 315, long arms, can move really well for his size. We talked a little bit earlier about Maui Noah, right? Maybe a lack of athleticism in terms of being able to move laterally, dealing with speed off the edge. I don't think that's really that big of an issue with Freeling. I think he's a little bit more athletic, plus a bigger body as well. Sky is absolutely the ceiling for a player like this. And if you're the Cleveland Browns, you basically need five brand new offensive linemen. You need a new wide receiver. You maybe need a new quarterback as well. I know Shedeur Sanders had maybe the lowest recorded QBR in history this season. I want to say that was a stat, but that's one of the worst offensive lines, if not the worst in the league. The receiving core is garbage as well. Njoku is probably headed out. Fannin had a pretty good rookie season, but inconsistent hands as well. Pick number 7, we have the Washington Commanders. Arvell Reese, I think, can make a lot of sense here as well. You can't imagine Bobby Wagner is going to be playing for much longer. Sonny Styles, if he was available. Caleb Downs. Again, Caleb Downs would work with pretty much any team here inside the top 10, right? You got to imagine edge could be in play here too. I don't think I'm as high on David Bailey as other people, and that's kind of been the current theme here for these first couple of selections. I'm not as high on some of these players as most other people are. David Bailey is a really good player. He's extremely fast, great twitch, good bend. I don't really know if his pass rush bag is that deep in my opinion. I don't really think he's that great against the run. He's got possible character concerns as well with what happened after the Arizona State game with a cameraman. I was at that game. I'm a Sun Devil fan as well. That was an awesome game for us. Got absolutely bagged up by Max Ihanachor. It's Ihanachor or Ihanachor. Tough name to pronounce. That guy's an absolute monster, though. Absolutely an NFL talent. David Bailey, I think, struggles versus NFL level talent. We can see right here his lowest grade of the season was against Utah. Caleb Lomu, right? Spencer Fano, 2 first-round tackle prospects. And then Arizona State, Max Ihanachor, he had to go line up on the other side. He did contribute a couple sacks that game, but it was from the other side against Atkins, the left tackle. So I do have some concerns with David Bailey, character concerns, and then I think maybe he just feasts on bad matchups. I'm going to be honest. So I don't love David Bailey at pick number 7. I would probably go Mansoor, Delane, or Arvell Reese here. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to go with Mansoor, Delane out of LSU. This guy's absolutely locked down. I can't remember the stat because I saw it like a month or two ago, but I want to say he was only targeted like 30-something times all season. Just so good, reliable, 6 foot 190. I think he's probably a little bit closer to 5'11", 22, just turned 22, but super, super talented. I think he's the best corner in the class, and there's some really good ones. That would maybe be the only reason you don't take him that early. You think you can get another corner early in the second round, but Jermod McCoy, Terrell, I don't love Cisse, but some people do. Abney, Hood, Pons is such a monster despite his lack of height. Stukes has been climbing the draft boards as well. At pick number 8, we have the New Orleans Saints. I'm going with my easy number 1 wide receiver in the class, and I did say I'm a Sun Devil fan, so maybe I'm biased, but Tyson is head and shoulders, to me, above the other guys. I can understand arguments for Tate or Lemon, but Tyson, in my opinion, is easily wide receiver 1, and I love Tyler Shuck. He is one of my favorite quarterbacks in the league, not named Drake May. So good. I think the future is so bright for the Saints. That was really a head-scratching pick at the time, but if you haven't caught on yet, buy stock now. I promise you it's going to the moon. Tyler Shuck is going to be a monster with a couple reliable pass catchers. Tyson Olave, if you can stay healthy. Johnson at tight end. I do like Neal, running back out of Kansas. He got injured, but I think when he comes back this season, he'll be a solid contributor as well. Banks was a nice pickup as well. Had a really strong second half of the season out of Texas at left tackle. They probably need a guard. And then obviously an edge rusher as well. But Tyson, I think, is a can't-miss prospect right here. Great for the way Sugg likes to play too, right? He's a pocket passing guy, likes to get the ball out quick. Tyson is one of the best route runners, if not the best route runner in this class. Just moves really well, great at finding space, and just a really friendly target for a young quarterback. So at pick number 9, we have the Kansas City Chiefs. And these guys certainly need a lot of help. I've seen a ton of people mocking Jeremiah Love. I just don't understand Arvell Reese to the Jets, and I do not understand Jeremiah Love to the Chiefs, even if he was available here. I get Jeremiah Love is awesome. One, I don't think he makes it to 9 because of how awesome he is. But two, I just can't imagine a world where the Chiefs are like, yeah, fuck it, let's just take a running back. When they have so many other holes, man, they need a right tackle, potentially a receiver. Karlaftis hasn't really been the player that, I think the Chiefs have hoped for after signing to a new contract. Chris Jones, I think, regressed a ton this season. Travis Kelce, is he going to play? Even if he does, is he anywhere, where he used to be? A lot of question marks with this team, in my opinion. I think David Bailey here can make sense, even though, again, I'm not as high on him as other people. I still think he's a good player with a really high ceiling. But David Bailey or Carnell Tate make the most sense, in my opinion. We're going to go David Bailey, edge. They just need a little bit more pass rush. Obviously, Spagnuolo, one of the best defensive coordinators really of all time. So just giving him an edge rusher like this is going to be such a valuable tool for that defense going forward. At pick number 10, we have the Cincinnati Bengals, who, similar to the Chiefs, they need a lot, and probably a lot more, especially on defense. You just take a defensive player here. Literally just take a defensive player. Honestly, it doesn't even really matter who it is. Just take a defensive player. Peter Woods out of Clemson. I think there's been a bit of draft fatigue around him. I know his production wasn't the greatest his last season at Clemson. Clemson underperformed in general, but this guy's a monster, man. Huge disruptor. There were so many plays he almost made this season, and you'd be like, okay, well, isn't that a bad thing? Watching the tape, I'm really not sure it's a bad thing. It's kind of hard to explain. I think he was constantly involved. I just don't think it really showed up on the stat sheet. This guy is such a terrific athlete. He plays fullback for the Clemson Tigers as well. I don't know if you guys knew that, but they literally hand him the ball and throw the ball to him down near the goal line. It's absolutely ridiculous. 6'3", 310, not even 21 years old. I think people are sleeping a bit on Peter Woods. And this is certainly a team, again, that needs a lot of help on defense, especially up the middle. They need to be able to stop the run, have a little self-respect, and, I would say make people pass, but they'd probably get cooked through the air as well. I don't know. If you're a Bengals fan, I'm sorry. Probably the most poorly managed franchise in the league. And, I'm probably just dogging on you too much, so I'll just move on. I'm sorry. I don't mean that. I have nothing against the Bengals. Pick number 11, Carnell Tate, snap pick here. I've been saying it so many times, but I'm not as high on Carnell Tate as other people as well. Again, I think he's a good football player. After seeing what happened to Brian Thomas this year, though, right? Hospital ball from Trevor Lawrence preseason, just wasn't the same player after that. I kind of question these receivers who maybe have the yips, and I think I saw that against Miami in the playoffs. Carnell Tate had a couple very uncharacteristic drops. Normally doesn't drop really anything. 0.0% drop rate, 86% contested catch rate, 3 yards per route ran. Not the same against Miami, right? And again, I think Ohio State in general just kind of got bullied by Miami, but that was not a good sign. There were a couple passes he literally pulled up on or wasn't able to get off the line against press. I think he lacks physicality. I think at least in that game, I saw he was scared to get involved over the middle of the field versus a team that was hitting really hard, right? And I'll play devil's advocate. They were hitting hard. I wouldn't do it either. I'm not calling Carnell Tate a bitch because I'm a bitch. There's no doubt about it. I don't even know what we're talking about right now, but I would be out on Carnell Tate. There's no doubt in my mind he's a first-round talent, but after what I saw, I'm out, and I get that maybe to most people, one game doesn't define a player. In my opinion, it does. So if I was a GM, which I'm obviously not, I would be out on Carnell Tate, but I understand the appeal. Just a really good football player. I totally get it. High ceiling. I'm not saying he's going to have the yips when he gets to the league, but that was a red flag to me, and the Dolphins certainly need a receiver. And I would say a taller receiver, but obviously I don't think Tua is going to be the quarterback next season. I'm interested to see what they do there. Maybe Malik Willis comes over from the Packers. Maybe they just let Quinn Ewers keep going. But they need another receiver, a downfield threat. They got Waddle. They got Washington in the slot. Tate, just a bigger body, right? You can actually see these guys over the line. I don't know. Well, I would say I don't know how Tua was doing it with Tyreek Hill and Waddle, but I guess he really wasn't, right? At pick number 12, I'm going Arvell Reese here, and I'm going to use him as a linebacker for the Cowboys. They desperately need a commander in the middle of that defense. They need somebody who can be physical, who can blow up the run. Arvell Reese, again, we talked about it, is a guy who can do that. I'm playing him at linebacker, and then maybe, mix him in as a pass rusher or mix him in as a blitzer off the edge. But, again, I think he's going to be a linebacker. And if you're the Cowboys, I think those would be my major targets. I think Reese, Sonny Styles, obviously, if he was available here, and then edge rusher if neither linebacker is available. So maybe David Bailey, maybe TJ Parker out of Clemson as well. But either edge or linebacker for me, and then maybe safety or corner later in the round. Jermod McCoy may be in play as well. Obviously, injury concerns there. That's just, again, information I'm not privy to. So whether he's fully healthy and capable of playing at the level he played before injury, I simply don't know. If he can, though, there's no doubt in my mind the Rams would sprint to the podium here and select Jermod McCoy. They definitely need some help in the secondary. At pick number 14, we have the Baltimore Ravens. It's hard not to imagine they would take Lemon in this spot. Lemon, again, another guy I'm not that high on. There are players I am high on, I promise you. There are players I am high on. We'll get to those guys. And I've already talked about a few, right? Caleb Downs, Freeling. We talked about Peter Woods. We talked about Jordyn Tyson as well, Mansoor, Delane. So there are some players I'm high on. I don't want to sound like I'm being too negative, but I don't also want to be like everybody else. I have my own opinions. I'm not saying they're right or they will be right, but and I won't take pride in being vindicated if somebody doesn't end up being good, right? That's not what this is about. It's just my personal opinions on the player. And I think Makai Lemon is a really good football player. I saw a lot of USC games this year, and every time I watched him, I was like, dude, this guy is awesome. He plays like a 6'4" wide receiver, but he's 5'10", 5'11". I just think people are getting a little too caught up in trying to find the next Jamar Chase, the next JSN, and they're looking for little guys who can move well. And I just think that's a trap. I'm going to be honest. I think that's a trap. I don't think Lemon moves nearly as well as somebody like JSN. I think a lot of people are comparing those two guys, and he just simply doesn't offer the same elasticity. I don't think he's nearly as effective against man coverage. He just has really good hands. Some of the best hands I've seen, regardless of the level, collegiate, professional. Incredible hands. Smart football player as well. Again, I just don't think he offers the same elasticity, the same agility, change of direction that JSN does. So just don't fall into the trap of thinking that Lemon is the next JSN. That's all I really have to say about that topic. But I think the Ravens would be pretty happy to get him at pick number 14. Could definitely use some receiver help for Lamar Jackson heading into the season. I believe the Ravens are actually the favorite out of the AFC to win the Super Bowl, betting odds-wise next year, which is a little surprising to me. That is a team that is pretty soft. I'm just going to be honest. And growing up, again, as a Patriots fan, a lot of bitter rivalry games between us, especially in the playoffs. And you always think of the Ravens as this hard-hitting team, potentially even on the verge of dirty, right? But they always battled. They were always one of the toughest teams. And they are potentially maybe the softest team in the league right now. They certainly need some trench help. So maybe that'll be the only reason you don't go Lemon in this case. Maybe you could argue for somebody like Lee Hunter or Caleb Banks, defensive interior. They certainly need a guard as well, maybe a center if Linderbaum doesn't come back. I imagine he probably will, though. At pick number 15, we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And with the Buccaneers, I actually think guard could be an underrated selection here. Vega out of Penn State. But what I'm going to do here, Kenyon Sadiq can make sense as well. I'm going to go TJ Parker, Clemson. Again, same deal with Peter Woods. Didn't maybe have the same production. Was a guy who was really being mocked top 5 in preseason mock drafts. But, really shined at the Senior Bowl, 6'3", 260, has all the traits you look for in an NFL pass rusher. I think he'll be really good at the next level. And it makes sense for a team that needs some edge help to go get a guy like that in the middle of the first round. At pick number 16, I know exactly where I'm going with this pick. I'm going Lee Hunter out of Texas Tech, who has skyrocketed up draft boards. I think we talked about him in my last mock draft a month or two ago. I've definitely talked about him on Twitter, and nobody was talking about this guy a month or two ago. And again, I'm an ASU fan. I know so much about Big 12 players. Lee Hunter is an absolute force of nature, 6'4", 330, but he's not just a run stuffer. This guy can get after the quarterback. He can disrupt in the pass game, and we talked about it earlier, right, with the slot corner slash box safety kind of hybrid. the next evolution of the game defensively. I think the other part of that is a defensive interior guy who can stop the run and who can also get after the quarterback. Really just picture the teams that were good this year defensively. We think of teams that had a good, again, hybrid safety or slot corner. They also had really good interior pass rush. The Seahawks may be the best, right, with Byron Murphy and then Leonard Williams. The Patriots were in the Super Bowl as well with Barmore, Milton Williams. Having a defensive interior that can, again, stop the run, allow defenses to play too high safeties to limit big plays, but again, who can also get after the quarterback. Such a valuable tools, especially if you have multiple of them. And Lee Hunter, in my opinion, is one of the best in this class at being able to do both. Him and then Peter Woods, really. At pick number 17, we have the Detroit Lions. I'm going to go with Caden Proctor here. I do love Lomu. I'm way higher on Lomu than most people. Super athletic, moves really well. Again, can deal really well with those speedy edge rushers, especially laterally. I think he's a contributor in the run game as well. I just think the downside is he's probably a little bit too light, 6'6", 308. I would probably bet he's a little bit lighter, though. He needs to become stronger and probably work on his technique as well. He's a little bit raw, but I love Lomu. One of the best pass blockers here. I think the highest ceiling maybe of any tackle in this class. So I just think Proctor is probably a little bit more of what the Lions are looking for. I think Lomu and Proctor do offer versatility. You could potentially use both at guard, even though Proctor is, 6'7", 366. That is not right. This guy definitely needs to shed a couple pounds, in my opinion, to better deal with, again, speed that you're going to see at the professional level. But Proctor, they utilized him in the offense in a couple different ways, the Bama, and you could definitely see that happening with Dan Campbell in Detroit as well. Makes a lot of sense there. Pick 18, we have the Minnesota Vikings. Definitely would not mind Emmanuel McNeil-Warren here. Kind of like a Harrison Smith replacement, the hitman, right? A super physical, hard-hitting safety that has instincts. Would definitely make a lot of sense. Might be a slight reach at 18. I think I'd probably go Caleb Banks here, defensive interior out of Florida, but either pick would make a lot of sense to me. Pick number 19, I'm going to go linebacker here out of Georgia, CJ Allen. The only issue that I really have here is Spencer Fano is kind of dropping a little bit further, but in this situation, that's just the way it works out. I do like CJ Allen a lot, though. This guy has good instincts. Maybe not the physical specimen like Sonny Styles or Anthony Hill at 6'1", 235, but just a really smart football player. Really good against the run, right? And really not bad in coverage either. I think this is a little bit low. Had a couple interceptions this season, I believe. I don't know if they actually have that statistic on here, but yeah, I definitely think the Panthers could use some help at linebacker. The other pick I think that makes a lot of sense to Carolina is Kenyon Sadiq, tight end out of Oregon. I believe that's the pick we made the last time we did a mock draft on this channel. Really explosive athlete, great run blocker. Drop rate is a little bit higher than you'd like to see, but hard to imagine Kenyon Sadiq makes it, out of the teens, maybe early 20s. Pick number 20, I think I could see the Cowboys taking Sadiq. I know they have Ferguson, but it really would not surprise me to see them take Sadiq in this spot. We had them take Reese, right, as a linebacker. I could go Mesidor here, Falk, Cassius Howell. Mesidor is one of my favorites, no doubt about it. There is some edge depth in this class, though. So what I'm going to do here is actually go with McNeil-Warren, safety out of Toledo. We just talked about him, but again, the Cowboys are a team that desperately needs some physicality on defense. Warren absolutely brings that, as does Reese. With those two players alone, I think they're instant impact starters. They're going to bring that physicality from day one, from week one. So I love those picks for the Cowboys. At pick number 21, we have the Pittsburgh Steelers. This one is going to be a wide receiver or a quarterback. I'm going to go Ty Simpson here. And I actually like Ty Simpson. I think Ty Simpson kind of gets a bad rap. I think he was in the conversation for being a top 2 pick, maybe even the number 1 pick for quite a while, right? A couple months. I just think Bama, they weren't very good this year. I know they made the college football playoff. I know they won a game against Oklahoma, but they had absolutely no run game. The receivers were awful, man. They dropped so many passes that Ty Simpson put right on him. I think he's actually extremely underrated, and I think you're getting a pretty damn good deal at pick number 21, although the Steelers do have a tendency to make moves that eternally make them mid, so maybe they don't take a gamble here on somebody like Simpson. Maybe they just go receiver, Denzel Boston, Casey Concepcion out of A&M. Omar Cooper, I know, is really rising up draft boards as well. At pick number 22, though, we're going Francis Mauigoa. Again, I did say I think he profiles better as a guard, and I think the value is just too good here for the Chargers. Bring in Mauigoa, play him at guard. He can move bodies in the run game. That's my favorite part of his game. He's a mover in the run game, super physical, can hold up just fine in the pass game, especially with, being on the interior. He's stronger than he is fast. I think it just makes more sense. Pick number 23. I mean, this would be a dream come true for Eagles fans if Spencer Fano fell to pick 23. Right, Lane Johnson. I don't know. I don't think he's retired yet, but I think there are rumors of him retiring. Dickerson as well at guard. Rumors of him retiring. Not entirely sure about that, but either way, those guys are towards the end of their career. Spencer Fano would be such a perfect pick for the Eagles, in my opinion. Corner as well would make a lot of sense, right? Quinyon Mitchell, one of the top corners in the league. DeJean, one of the top slots. I know they try to play him out wide this year, at least a little bit. I think he's better suited as a nickel. I think, an outside corner would make a lot of sense. But there is some really good depth at corner in this draft. So second round pick, definitely going corner for the Eagles. Pick number 24 for the Browns, though. We had them take Monroe Freeling earlier. In this situation, honestly, I would not hate Caleb Lomu and just bookend both sides of the line. Vega at guard would make a lot of sense for me as well. I just don't know the likelihood of a team selecting two offensive linemen. I feel like they just might think that's too much. I mean, I would love it personally, but I think they'd be more inclined to take a receiver in the spot. I'm going to go Omar Cooper or Casey Concepcion. Casey is just lightning in a bottle. Drop rate, again, a little bit concerning, but this guy is an electric route runner. Had some really good reps against some of the best competition in the country as well. And we talked about it earlier. I think the Browns have something for receivers that like to drop passes, so we're going to go with KCC there. Do people call him that? I don't know. I might have just made up a nickname right there. But pick number 25, we have the Chicago Bears. This one is a no-brainer for me. Actually, maybe it isn't. I'm going Keldrick Falk or Akeem Mesidor. I don't love Cassius Howell. I think he kind of tailed off in the second half of the season. I don't think he necessarily really showed up against really good competition. I think he kind of feasted on bad offensive line play. Good football player, but again, just lack of size, 6'2". I mean, the weight is there, but the height, the arm length, not really what I'm looking for there. Even though I made the exact opposite argument with Ruben Bane earlier, right? I don't care about the arm length. I care about the football player. So maybe I'm not being consistent with my judgment or my opinions, but I like Bane, and I just don't really like Cassius Howell that much. So I'm going to go with Akeem Mesidor here, edge out of Miami, who I think might be the best edge rusher in the class. The big downside is he's 25, right? He might even be, no, he's 25, or at least he will be by the time the season starts, which means he'll be almost 30 by the time his rookie contract is up. But he's an instant impact player. I think for a team like the Bears, who just won the division, who just won a playoff game, and who almost just beat the Rams for a chance to go to the NFC Championship game, you want a guy who can contribute immediately, especially off the edge. They desperately need pass rush. A couple of teams here do, right? The Bills do. The Patriots do as well. You can imagine the Seahawks probably want some depth at that position as well. I've been struggling to say depth this video, I think. Maybe I have a list, but I'm not sure. Pick number 26, though. I think receiver would make a lot of sense here for the Bills. That wide receiver room is just absolutely decimated. I'm going to go Omar Cooper out of Indiana. Pretty underrated route runner. Maybe not so much anymore. I know his grade versus man coverage isn't that high on PFF, but I think he's a little bit better versus man than this website would indicate. So Cooper, I definitely like that pick for Buffalo. Edge, again, can make sense as well. Keldrick Falk, more of a run-stopping guy. Just doesn't really pop on tape, to be honest. Great athlete. Built like an alien as well. 6'6", 285 is ridiculous. Powerful, but just doesn't have a deep pass rushing bag. I think he's more of an early down edge rusher. Again, really effective against the run. Pick number 27, we have the San Francisco 49ers. Safety could be in play here. Thieneman out of Oregon. But there's some depth there as well. I'm actually going to go with Denzel Boston, wide receiver here out of Washington. Kind of fits their profile, I feel like, of receivers they like, kind of taller guys, lengthier guys, good range. Denzel Boston, 6'4", 209, really good grade against man coverage. these stats are just absolutely ridiculous. 77% contested catch rate, 3.1% drop rate. So, to see a big guy at 6'4" have this good of a grade versus man coverage, I don't think he's as good of a route runner as this would indicate. I do think he is good. I think he's better than somebody like McMillan. That was McMillan's big downside, right, is his inability maybe to separate versus sticky man coverage, although he had a great season, right? Just won Offensive Rookie of the Year. So you don't necessarily have to get open by a huge margin to be a good receiver in this league if you got good hands, and Denzel Boston absolutely has those. At pick number 28, we have the Houston Texans. Vega out of Penn State would be my easy selection here. There are a couple different directions I maybe would consider going. They do pick again early in the second round. The Houston Texans were one of my sleeper teams this year. The Patriots and the Texans were my two sleeper teams this year. Both of them, I think if Houston had won, they would have been the Super Bowl, obviously. Most likely if they had to play Jarrett Stidham as well. But I think I was vindicated by both of those selections. I'm not getting off the train on the Houston Texans. I know everybody clowns CJ Stroud for his performance. I was at that game as well. It wasn't great, but Houston, I think, is making a run at it this year. Would not surprise me to see them win the Super Bowl. That defense is so good. The offensive line is getting a little bit better as well. They kind of just ran into a white-hot defense, right? The Patriots in a blizzard in their home stadium. So tough matchup for them. Hard to imagine CJ Stroud could ever play worse than that, but why not continue improving the offensive line with maybe the best guard in this class? Defensive interior can make sense, though. Lee Hunter, if he's available in the spot, snap pick for me. Kristen Miller. I also think an argument could be made for Caleb Lomu as well. Again, I love this guy, and he's fallen so far at the moment. Edge to maybe replace Daniil Hunter in the future, although, again, I'm looking to take guys who can make instant impacts. Another name that I think could be a first-round pick, Jadarian Price, Notre Dame. Doesn't have a lot of tread on his tires, running behind Jeremiah Smith, but super talented. Watch the tape on that guy. Really, really good running back. Pick 29, we selected Jermod McCoy earlier. Ty Simpson, I think if he was on the board, would make a lot of sense here. Some receivers, I think, would make sense here, but a lot of them are already gone. I know people love to mock tackles to them. I just don't really think they need one. Maybe edge. I wouldn't hate edge, to be honest. I know that's kind of an underrated spot right now, but I don't think a lot of their young edge rushers really lived up to expectations this season. I don't think Fisk was really great. I don't think Verse was very, very good either. And again, with a corner already being off the board, Avion Terrell is still up here as well. There's some really good players still on this board, man. I'm going to go Chris Brazzell. Surprise late first round pick. Another tall receiver, 6'5", 200. I think he's a little bit too light. He probably needs to put on a couple pounds, get a little bit stronger, become a better run blocker. But he moves really well for somebody who's 6'5". Probably better than Boston, in my opinion. Not probably. I think certainly moves a lot better than Denzel Boston. Better route runner. Good hands as well. I think Boston honestly would fit a little bit more with what the Rams are trying to do, right? Maybe replace Devontae Adams with a sure-handed guy who's going to catch literally everything. But they could also go with Makai Lemon at pick number 13, and then draft a corner later in the first. Couple different options there. Again, Ty Simpson, if he's on the board, they could select Matthew Stafford's replacement as well. Maybe an edge rusher, too, is in play. At pick number 30, we have the Denver Broncos. To me, this is going to be a linebacker, Anthony Hill. Josiah Trotter could be a sneaky first-round pick as well. I'm going to go running back here. They need to get the run game going. Harvey was good, but I think of him more like a third down back. I'm going Jadarian Price out of Notre Dame. They just have to get that run game going. I just think they have to. The offensive line is too good. Maybe it's just too good in pass protection and not good enough in the run game, but their pass game, it's just so much harder to sustain a good passing game when you're incapable of running the football. Again, as a Patriots fan, I saw that for the entirety of the first half of the season, unable to run the football. It was literally entirely on Drake May's shoulders. You don't want that for a young quarterback. That's a lot to ask of somebody, even though Bo Nix has had some good games, has had some really bad games. But to get him playing more consistently, you just need a run game. At pick number 31, we have my team. Wow, there are some good options up here, I'm not going to lie. Avion Terrell, corner could be in play. I just think, more pressing need is obviously tackle. Lomu, Sadiq could make a ton of sense here as well. It's just hard to imagine Sadiq would ever make it out of the first round. But, there's a lot of free agent tight ends as well, right? Likely could potentially be a Patriot. I've heard rumors of that. And Njoku, who I personally wouldn't like to see in New England. I would like likely probably the best. Kyle Pitts, obviously, could be a potential trade target. No, I think he's a free agent as well. Forgive my lack of knowledge there. But pick number 31, just assuming we don't sign a tight end, it would be really hard to pass up on Kenyon Sadiq here. My other pick in this position would be Max Yannicor. I love this dude. Hasn't been playing football for that long. Again, bagged up David Bailey. Maybe didn't have the most consistent play across throughout the season, but didn't give up a single sack. This guy is a monster athlete. 6'6", 330, can move well, super powerful. One of the highest ceilings for any offensive lineman in the class. So for me, it's Sadiq, Lomu, or Ihanichor. I'm pronouncing his name wrong every single time, or one of two different ways. I should probably offer up some consistency there, though. At pick number 32, we have the Seattle Seahawks. Couple free agents at corner. I'm going Brandon Cisse. I think this is the type of corner they really like. Did I say receiver or corner? I don't know. I've been talking for a long time at this point, over 40 minutes. 6 foot 190, physical corner, really good athlete. Hit or miss prospect, in my opinion. Had some really bad games. I watched that A&M game where they choked like a 20 or 30 point lead at halftime. Yeah, it was bad, but again, the whole team was bad. The whole team was really bad, and then having a really low grade against LSU, which was one of the worst offenses in the country this year, is a little bit surprising as well. But again, Cisse, I think, really has all the tools, and I think that's something Seattle would like. Just a really physical press corner that can run with people. At pick 33, we have the Jets. So far, we selected Caleb Downs and Lee Hunter. And I'm going to stick with the theme of defense, I think. I mean, this is a team that just desperately needs defense. Again, wide receiver could be in play here, maybe Jeremy Bernard. There's just so many receivers off the board here. I'm going Avion Terrell. This would be a dream come true for the Jets if this guy fell to the start of the second round. Pick 34, we have the Arizona Cardinals, and this is going to hurt me a little bit, but I'm sending Max. Well, I guess Max is staying technically in state here. They need a right tackle. They're going to get a really good one here. The other option, I think, is, again, Lomu, I think, offers versatility across the line. Blake Miller out of Clemson, and then later Brian Parker II out of Duke. But a couple different options there at right tackle that I certainly do like. Tennessee Titans up once again at pick 35. We talked about corner depth here. We're going with it. Keith Abney out of Arizona State. This one's close between Hood and Abney. You guys know I'm a homer, though. I love Abney. So talented. One of the most underrated players in the class. I've been screaming from the top of the mountaintops. I think that's redundant. That this guy's a first-round talent literally since the start of the year. And again, I think I was vindicated right there. Or maybe not if he goes early in the second round, but certainly a first-round talent regardless of where he goes. At pick 36, we have the Raiders. I'm going right tackle again here. I'm going Caleb Lomu. Blake Miller can make sense here as well. They're just going to kick Lomu out to right tackle. I think he offers guard versatility. We've talked about that a few times at this point. But they need a right tackle. They need to protect Mendoza for the future. I think this makes a lot of sense here. The only downside of this pick, again, I think, is that Lomu maybe isn't the strongest in the run game. I think he's underrated there. I think people just say that he isn't that good because maybe he lacks a little bit of strength, and you want to get Genty going, so maybe you want to be a bit more physical and draft somebody like Blake Miller, who's just a larger human being. Well, I guess they're the same height, but Miller is stronger and also weighs a good 10 to 15 pounds more at the minimum. At pick number 37, we have the Giants, who selected Sonny Styles in the first round. Jeremy Bernard here. Again, could make sense. I'm going to go corner, though. Colton Hood out of Tennessee looked so good. I don't know what they got going on over there in Tennessee, but they got some good cornerbacks coming out of that school this year. Jermon McCoy, Colton Hood. At pick 38, we have the Houston Texans. I think there's a pretty good chance Darian Price falls out of the first round, and if he does, I would, again, sprint to the podium right here if I was Houston, get a running back, get a guard, get a running back, and just really improve that offense as much as you possibly can. Take some of the weight off of Stroud's shoulders. I'm going to go either defensive interior or edge rusher here, again, as a replacement for Hunter. I want an instant impact guy. I'm going to go Christian Miller out of Georgia. Offers both pass rush ability as well as run stop ability. I don't know if that's a word either, but kind of similar prototype to maybe Lee Hunter. Obviously lighter than I think Lee Hunter is just a unicorn, though, with his size and his speed and his ability to get after the quarterback. I think he's more similar to Peter Woods, Christian Miller is. At pick 39, we have the Cleveland Browns. We had them select a receiver and a tackle so far. I'm going to go with either another tackle or a guard here. Blake Miller, again, it makes a lot of sense. We're going to go Emmanuel Pregnon out of Oregon. Maybe the best guard in the class. If you can get him at pick 39 early in the second round, I think that's a fantastic deal. Still some good edge rush value up here. Cassius Howell, Keldrick Falk. At pick number 40, we once again have the Kansas City Chiefs. We gave them David Bailey previously. Couple different directions you can go here. I know where I'm going. I'm going Michael Trigg out of Baylor. This might be a surprise pick to some people, but Michael Trigg has one of the highest ceilings in this class, in my opinion. The drop rate is certainly concerning. He's not much of a run blocker, but neither was Kelsey really, right? Kelsey was more of a glorified slot receiver, in my opinion, and probably a lot of people's opinions. And Michael Trigg is exactly that. This guy is such a freak athlete. Some of the catches he makes are insane, and then he just drops the easy ones right in the breadbasket. It really doesn't make much sense, but I think this guy has one of the highest ceilings in the draft class. I would hate to see the Chiefs get this guy, and 40 might seem like a reach, but trust me, I think it could be worth it if you're willing to take the gamble. At pick number 41, we have the Cincinnati Bengals up once again. I'm going to go edge rusher here. I'm going to go with Cassius Howell. I was going to go Keldrick Falk. They had Shamar Stewart last year, obviously kind of underwhelmed in a lot of different areas. So I'm going to take a guy who's a little bit different as a build, more of, again, a designated pass rusher, really specializes in getting after the quarterback. Not very effective against the run, but that's why we drafted Peter Woods in the first round. Cassius Howell, high motor, really high motor. That is the one thing to really appreciate about his game, no doubt about it. Again, my concern is really just the arm length. Pick 42, we have the New Orleans Saints. We had to take Jordyn Tyson in the first round. I'm going to go Keldrick Falk out of Auburn here. I think this actually would be a pretty good replacement for Cam Jordyn. Obviously, those are big shoes to fill, but Cam Jordyn was a big guy. He wasn't really known for his bend. He could contribute against the run. I think Keldrick Falk, again, can absolutely do that. At pick 43, we have the Dolphins up once again. So many different directions this team really could go. Edge rusher, again, super underrated spot here for this team. Bradley Chubb, I've heard rumors of him possibly being on the move. Obviously, they offloaded Jalen Phillips midway through the year as well. I'm going Zion Young out of Missouri. Some potential off-the-field issues here, but super talented player. Good against the run, and also can get after the quarterback. 6'5", 262, prototypical edge rusher build. Really, and again, not a lot not to love. Besides maybe the off-field issues. We'll see, though. Pick 44, we have the Jets once again. We've gone all defense up to this point, and there just really isn't a quarterback I would take here, to be honest. I think Chambliss is going back to school. I just like this quarterback class, man, is maybe one of the worst of all time. It's extremely rough. I might just continue going defense, man. I might just go defense again. I just don't know if there's a receiver here that I absolutely love. Maybe Malachi Fields. Maybe Antonio Williams out of the slot could be a sneaky good pick right here. I don't know Garrett Wilson. I think Garrett Wilson is mostly a wide receiver, as is Mitchell. I don't know. I don't know the distribution of their receivers in the slot, but I think Antonio Williams could be somebody that is picked in the late second or early third. Jeremy Bernard, I think, could make sense here as well. Obviously, Chris Bell, super talented, but tore his ACL. At pick number 45, we have the Baltimore Ravens. Kaden McDonald is going to slip down here, more of a run-stopping defensive tackle. And again, this is a team that desperately needs to get stronger in the trenches, so that pick makes a ton of sense if you ask me. At pick number 46, we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who selected T.J. Parker in the first round. This is a team that definitely could use a linebacker. I'm going to go Anthony Hill here out of Texas, who I really like. Really high ceiling, maybe a raw prospect, kind of a gamble in that sense, but 6'3", 238, really fast. Just again, a great athlete. Maybe doesn't have the instincts that somebody like C.J. Allen has, but really high ceiling, much higher ceiling than Allen, in my opinion. At pick number 47, we have the Colts. I'm going to go linebacker here as well. I'm going Josiah Trotter out of Missouri. I don't know why I enunciated that so sharply, but Trotter is a lethal run defender as well. Kind of similar to Arvell Reese in that sense. Early declare, I believe, redshirt sophomore, 237, 6'2". So maybe a little bit smaller than Arvell Reese, but really good run defender. A disruptor in that part of his game. Blows up blocks. Really fun tape to watch. Can get after the quarterback as well. Again, not really a coverage type of guy, but the Colts are a team that could certainly use some physicality at linebacker on defense as well. Pick number 48, we have the Atlanta Falcons. Interested to see what happens with Kyle Pitts, right? If he were to leave, maybe Eli Stowers out of Vanderbilt can make some sense here. Defensive interior could make sense here as well. I'm not really sure there's anybody I love, though, left on the board at this point. This is a rather tough selection, in my opinion. I don't mind D'Angelo Pons. I know there are a lot of Falcons fans that don't feel like they need a corner in this draft. So I'm going to look to wide receiver here, and I'm going to go with Zachariah Branch. Let's keep him in Georgia. Some draft analysts view this guy as a gadget-only receiver. I'm not really sure. I think he's confined to that role. Big contributor for Georgia this year, probably their biggest contributor on offense, at least the wide receiver position, 5'10", 180, not the biggest guy, but could be a really nice compliment to Drake London in that offense, in my opinion. And they could certainly use a receiver. So Zachariah Branch, high upside, kind of a risky pick as well. Pick 49, we have the Minnesota Vikings. Caleb Banks was our first selection. So what we're going to do here is go with safety, A.J. Halsey out of LSU, another really physical safety. Kind of similar to McNeil Warren in that sense, similar to Harrison Smith, just kind of fits that floors defense really, really well. You know, that defense really goes as far as their middle linebacker and their safeties take them. So A.J. Halsey, great instincts, hard-hitting safety, brings a lot of physicality to the Vikings as well. At pick number 50, we have the Detroit Lions, who we had select Caden Proctor in the first round. This is a team that could really use some edge help as well as corner help. I'm going to go edge here to help out Aiden Hutchinson. I'm going Gabe Yakas. I don't know how to pronounce this guy's name. It's definitely not Jackass. I promise you that. Watch this guy's tape. Really low run defense grade. I'm not seeing that when I watch him play. His run stop rate is a little bit higher here. It's a little bit more respectable at 7%. I think he's good against the run. I think he's effective there. And I think he's a disruptor in the pass game as well. Just maybe doesn't have the greatest bend you'd ever see, but you don't have to have bend to be a good pass rusher at the next level. I know that's kind of like just a buzzword that people like to use. And certainly it can help and does help, but Gabe is a guy, I'm just not going to even try to pronounce his last name again, 6'3", 270, so kind of just a stronger edge, I think would complement Aiden Hutchinson really well, and maybe what the Lions are looking for as well. Pick number 51, we have the Carolina Panthers up once again. I'm going to go with Eli Stowers here out of Vanderbilt, a really good receiving tight end, put up some crazy numbers this year, almost 800 yards, 4 touchdowns on 85 targets. Just a really reliable pass catcher, 6'4", 235. Again, Sadiq was in play for me in round 1, so we're going to go Stowers in the second round. Pick 52, we have the Green Bay Packers. Hard to imagine they wouldn't go corner here, and I like Chris Johnson out of San Diego State. Can be a really physical man press corner. Pretty respectable in zone coverage as well. His zone coverage grade is actually a lot higher than his man coverage grade, but I actually do like him in man coverage. I think he's a very physical corner, 6 foot, 195. Obviously plays for a smaller school, so maybe doesn't get the love as much as somebody like Mansoor, Delane, or Jermon McCoy gets, but this is a really, really talented player. Hard to imagine he makes it out of the second round, especially with a team like the Packers who need corner help. At pick 53, we have the Pittsburgh Steelers, who we have drafting a quarterback in the first round. A tackle can make some sense here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give our young quarterback some help. I'm going to go Malachi Fields out of Notre Dame, wide receiver, had a really good Senior Bowl. Maybe not the greatest grade versus man coverage, but great ability to track deep balls, 6'4", 222, physical receiver. Pick 54, we have the Eagles, who we did say we're going to have them select a corner in the second round, and this would be a nightmare draft for fans of teams in the NFC East that are not Eagles fans. because we had them take Fano in the first and then Pons in the second, and Pons is an absolute beast. He's a little undersized at, I believe, 5'8 or 5'9", 173, but he's actually really good in the run game for some reason. You wouldn't think that. You see a guy that small and you're like, well, he's probably a huge liability in the run. He's actually really good against the run. He plays up to bigger receivers as well. Interested to see how that translates to the next level, but the talent is there, man. This is a guy who's chippy, high motor as well. Would be fun to watch, especially with the secondary this good, right? Their second corner is really the weakness of this defense, but good defensive line could definitely use some depth. I think they'll get that in the later rounds. But again, Quinyon Mitchell, DeJean in the slot, Pons on the outside would be really, really fun to watch for that defense. Pick 55, we have the Chargers. Couple different directions they could go here. Hard to imagine they wouldn't go edge. Derek Moore, Michigan guy, Harbaugh, makes a lot of sense. Had another good Senior Bowl as well. Pick 56, we have the Jacksonville Jaguars. I'm going safety here, not even thinking about it. Dylan Thieneman out of Oregon, I really do like a lot. Just a playmaker in that secondary. Another team that needs a safety is the Chicago Bears, and I'm going to go safety again. Kamari Ramsey out of USC. A lot of really good safeties in this class, in my opinion. I also really like Genesis Smith, and when I say this, you know I mean it because I'm an ASU fan. Genesis Smith is one of the best ball hawks in this entire class. So instinctual. Just makes plays. Just breaks on balls that other safeties just simply don't. The problem with this guy is he's soft. There's no doubt about it. He's 6'2", 204, not a small person necessarily, but he's not particularly strong. 20% missed tackle rate, terrible in run defense in general. He just has to be tougher, has to be stronger if he's going to be really effective at the next level. Pick 58, we have the San Francisco 49ers. This is always a really tough team for me to draft, just because it's just like they have players. They're just always hurt, dude. They're just always hurt. Maybe they should investigate the electrical substation. I don't know. I'm going to go Chase Pazantis here, guard out of A&M, who maybe could be a fringe first-round pick. Has some downsides, but he's a fighter, man. He attacks on the line. Really good technical ability. Just not a fantastic athlete. I think that's probably his biggest drawback. But at 59, pick number 59, we have the Texans up once again. Dude, 3 picks in the first 2 rounds. Again, this is a team that is just really poised to make a run this year, if you ask me. And I'm going to go edge here. I'm going to go with Romello Height out of Texas Tech as a future replacement for Danielle Hunter in the case that they don't re-sign him, or that he just moves on in general. He's kind of getting up there in age. He's not that old, but I want to say Danielle Hunter is probably like 29 years old at this point, maybe even 30. But at the very minimum, they just add some depth there. Just make a good defense even better, especially with the first 2 picks going towards the offense. The Buffalo Bills are up once again here. We're going to go edge rusher. I like Denis Sutton out of Penn State. I love Malachi Lawrence out of UCF. Super underrated. I'm going to go with LT Overton here, who maybe doesn't have as deep of a pass rush bag. He is kind of more of a Keldrick Folk build, in my opinion, just more physical against the run game. Alabama was a team that was really good against the run this year, and his run defense grade PFF-wise wasn't great, but almost a 10% run stop rate. This guy can absolutely be a contributor against the run, and the Bills were a team that were terrible against the run, probably the worst run defending team in the league this year, so they need all the help they can get in that department. At pick 61, we have the Rams once again. We've had them take 2 Tennessee boys, Jermon McCoy and Chris Brazzell. I'm going to have them, I might go edge depth here. I'm tempted to go edge depth. I might go Mason Thomas out of Oklahoma. Quarterback, I just don't know if there's anybody worthy of a second-round pick here. Nussmeier, I think, could be a sneaky second-round pick. He obviously got benched this year, but I think there's a lot to love for teams. Me personally, not so much, but I think there is a lot to love for teams, especially a team like the Rams with McVay, right? They like the Matthew Stafford prototype, kind of a pocket passing quarterback. Nussmeier is absolutely that. So we're going to go Garrett Nussmeier, end of the second round for the Rams. Pick 62, we have the Broncos. We went running back in the first. We're going to go linebacker in the second, Jake Galladay out of Cincinnati. Again, another really good run defending linebacker. Pretty good in coverage, according to PFF. I don't really see that much. I think he's just a really good run defending linebacker, good for early downs. Pick 63, we have my Patriots up once again. This one is clear and obvious to me, and this would be a really dream scenario for us. Kenyon Sadiq in the first, and then Blake Miller late in the second, right tackle to replace Moses. I mean, I would imagine he comes back this year, but even if he does, there's no guarantee he plays past next season. He was pretty good for us this year, though. Maybe didn't have the greatest game against the Seahawks, but nobody on our offensive line really did. But super underrated contributor for our team. A big reason why we had success all season long. And then at pick 64, we have the Seahawks up once again. We're going to go edge here. We're going to go Mason Thomas out of Oklahoma. Give a really good defense even more depth. So they got Cisse and Mason Thomas. I like the way this turned out. I absolutely love the way this turned out for a lot of teams. Maybe you're a fan of a team and you didn't like the pick or picks, but I do like this. I like this for my Patriots. I like this for a lot of teams. I think it turned out well. If you disagree, feel free to let me know in the comments. Subscribe. Appreciate you guys. Hope you guys have a great day, man.